I had a talk with earlier with a couple of your colleagues down in Puerto Rico. Um,
Mhm,
so I've already sort of given them the spiel, and
mhm,
they sort of have their marching orders for what they think that they can do and how they expressed frustration that, the
mhm,
same things that I've been saying. You all are perfectly positioned with the skill sets to be of the greatest benefit to communities after a disaster. But if you don't know the way that the game works and you don't know the language to use in the game, you're going to be perpetually of the system. And that's what they're experiencing is unfortunately the ones that have learned how to play the game are the large engineering firms. And they are now the only ones driving the conversation about resilience and design, which, as much as I love my friends, the engineers, they are not the ones that should be sitting head on innovation and, putting forth
mhm.
really good human centric solutions. They are equipped at implementing and execution and designing them once they are explained what they're going to be. But and it's been that way. The engineering firms, of course, were already at the table most of the time because historically the large scale solutions in disaster recovery and hazard mitigation have been large scale engineered solutions. Your dikes are your levee system, stormwater management, drainage. But after Sandy, there were a lot more voices at the table talking about more human centric, place based design. And so now, of course, there's a lot more conversation in that arena. However, we, the people that know how to do good human centric design, most of us don't speak that language. So what I've tried to do for the past 10 years is provide some education on that language and how the system works for the brilliant planners that can be at the table. So we have an opportunity in Florida, Puerto Rico, pretty much every week there's a federally declared disaster. Y'all just happen to have a big one sitting at your front door. So the most important thing is to get into the communities that have been impacted and give them some basic language that they're going to need to know and some basic things to know not to do or not to say to FEMA straight out of the gate. Because if I'm not able to advise communities within the first couple of weeks of a disaster, they will take actions that determine 80% of what they're allowed to do a year from now. And that happens within the first couple of weeks. And so there's
Oh,
this,
wow.
it's a, the system is so broken because the process that FEMA lays out, this beautiful chart of when things happen, has no acknowledgement of human behavior, PTSD. The natural reaction to a disaster is to start fixing things. That's what anybody would do. If a tree falls on your house, the first thing that you do, you saw up the tree, you start repairing the roof, like you get to work. And the smaller a community is, the faster they can move because especially very rural places, we're get it done, pull out the chainsaws, get the trucks together, and we're getting things done. After Harvey, I got into some communities only 7 to 9 days after Harvey. They had already started putting back drywall. Drywall is considered a permanent repair by FEMA. And once you make a permanent repair, you are no longer eligible for any alternative solutions that you might have had in front of you. For example, I worked with a community with a city hall. I went into the city hall, they had pulled out all of the wet drywall, tiny, shitty building. And I said, does this building function well for you? And they said, no, it's way too little. We've outgrown it years ago. It's not a good building. We've needed to have a bigger city hall to serve all of the different functions that we need. This is where we have elections, yada, yada. And I said, okay, it's out here on the highway. Do you have a town center? And they're like, no. And so I said, where's your school and where's your library? And they showed me, I said, oh, who owns this big piece of land right here in the middle? And they're like, the city. I said, this be a good place? This didn't flood. It's high, it's dry. It's also right next to the fire station and the library and right in between the schools where the kids walk. What if we put the city hall here? And they went, oh, that would be amazing. They said, our city hall is flooded, 4 times. And I said, fantastic. don't put back the drywall. You just have to leave the drywall down. And so I explained, I said, we're gonna have to meet with FEMA. We've got to capture all of your damages. We have to procure, we have to put in place a federally compliant procurement process, which no jurisdiction almost never has. I don't know how big the jurisdictions you guys will be y'all work with are. They may be much more sophisticated than a lot of the communities that I work with that are under 20,000. Many communities, if they've never had direct federal funding, they don't have a federally compliant procurement process. So they just use their local procurement process, and FEMA will start denying the eligibility of cost. So you can write checks for $300,000 thinking you're going to get reimbursed. FEMA is a reimbursement. And if you didn't procure the services properly with a federally compliant process, even if you didn't know about it, that was the rule, ineligible, will not be getting a reimbursement. So the first thing they need to do is understand the boring world of compliance. Often it's the city secretary who ends up with this bomb in her lap of like, okay, Jolene, now you're in charge of FEMA recovery. You do all the paperwork. And so Jolene is the one that's tasked with understanding how the federal government works, which does not end well for many jurisdictions. They end up being deobligated and having money listed as ineligible. So I told them, don't put the drywall back. And I get a call the next day from the city secretary, and she said, the mayor's up here and he's got this church over here bringing in drywall. And I said, well, put him on the phone. So I get him on the phone. I said, Mayor, I told you not to put back that drywall. And he said, I understand, Laura. He said, but look, we got people, everybody's houses are flooded. We're City Hall. People are coming in here asking us what to do, and we can't look like we're not trying to make things better. We've got to get some drywall back up. I didn't pay for it. I got it donated. I said, it doesn't matter. As soon as FEMA walks in and they see that you've started repairing that building, they will not let you build a new one because you've already started expending money on permanent repairs. And so at the end of the day, Hitchcock, Texas is still sitting with their city hall exactly where it was 5 years later, because they needed that drywall back so badly. Emotionally, any therapist will tell somebody with PTSD, the best thing that you can do is get back to normal as fast as possible. So that is in direct conflict with the federal government and their rules. The rules don't make the rules aren't fair, they aren't right, but they are. And we're not going to change the federal government today. So if we can tell the jurisdictions two things, it's if they have met with FEMA or if they are going to be meeting with FEMA. One, I, for free, will attend their first FEMA meeting virtually with them so that I can just listen in and I can let them know if what they're being told is accurate and correct. FEMA is mobilizing so many people. Literally, many of them will have been working at McDonald's last week. And this week they are telling people what the federal government rules are, and they're not going to know. So the first thing is that a jurisdiction needs someone to tell them what the truth is, because otherwise they're going to have to just believe whatever they're told. The second is, even if you have a great FEMA person, they have read the Cliff Notes version of policy. They've never actually read the policy, much less the policy that policy was based on. So most people that work for FEMA heard from somebody who heard from somebody who learned from somebody what somebody else that read the Cliff Notes version had read. And so you end up with a self-running machine, and it doesn't matter who the president is or who the head of FEMA is. The machine's going to be running because there's so many people at the bottom who've always done it a specific way, and they're always going to keep doing it. There's no intervention. There's no way to stop that. So the jurisdictions need to know, one, they've got to put in a compliant procurement process so that they can get the help they need to assess their damages and really identify the full extent of everything that is damaged. The second thing is, if they talk to FEMA, they have to use the words temporary repairs. If that's the only words that they can get out of their mouth, just say temporary repairs, because they will say like, oh, we fixed it. We fixed that roof. The roof at City Hall. Yeah, we fixed it. What they mean is Bubba Joe got up there with a can of tar that he found in the closet, and he patched it up so that the rain wasn't coming in. They didn't know how to do a full analysis of the damage to the roof, and they certainly did not fix it. permanently. So as long as they know, use the words temporary repair. What that does is if they say to FEMA, FEMA's going to come in and ask them, what are your damages and what have you done already? What they need to say is, we don't know the full extent of our damages, because they want to start saying what they think is damage. But again, they have no business saying it because they're not qualified to know what their damages are. But FEMA says, just tell us. We can change it later. Just And they genuinely believe that, because the person that is there with them today is not going to be the person that's with them 2 years from now when we're still trying to sort this stuff out. So if they use the wrong word today, that gets written down. And then somebody months from now is going to read it, and they are in Texas, in headquarters in Texas, and they're going to look at it and say, well, potholes are not eligible. Bubba Joe said it was potholes. If you have a major flood, you have a lot of road damage. If your head of public works uses the word pothole, which is a totally normal public works word for a hole in the road, that is not going to be eligible. FEMA will write it down, and they will say your road damage is not eligible because potholes are normal wear and tear. If you use the fancy language of a flooded road with extreme conditions of weighted emergency vehicles traveling across it, caused the dislocation of a section of surface material, that is totally eligible. Well, what it looks like a pothole. So there are some words that your jurisdictions, there's no way for them to know the code words. So the best thing for them to do is say, we don't know what our damages are. We don't know. And FEMA's going to say, but tell us. Nope. Stick to your guns. And the worst part about Southern folks is they want to be nice and they want to be helpful. And so jurisdictions want to share information. It will be used against you later. Everything you say will be used against you, not maliciously, but unfortunately, it's the way that the system works. So A, do not give them a list of damages. Tell them that you are putting in place a federally compliant procurement process in order to attain a firm that can help you assess the full extent of your damages and be able to identify what they are, because right now you don't know. You're not qualified to say, because they will push and push and push for you to tell them something and just say, nope, our team is not in place to be able to. They're like, well, look at, I mean, you could say the building's damaged, right? Like half of it's gone. Nope, I'm not an expert in buildings. I can't say. I can't tell you what's wrong with this building. It looks damaged, but I don't know the full extent. I've got to get somebody in here that can tell me. If that's the only thing you can tell any of your communities to do, don't just tell FEMA, we're going to procure somebody that helps us put all of this together for you because we want to get it right. That buys them time and space to breathe and to get their footing underneath them, to figure out who do we need at the table? What firms do we need to help us analyze our damages? How do we even begin to estimate the extent of our damages? Then once they understand what the process is going to look like from the policy side of like, how do you function every day with FEMA without being railroaded? Once they understand that, you guys can work with them to do any of the things that they want to do. Once the money is protected, they have a world of options. They have a world of choices. If they don't put back the drywall, they have the opportunity to have a brand new city hall in a different location or whatever it is that they envision. So if you guys have worked on a comprehensive plan or any kind of plan, or even if there is no comp plan and they have a vision that you know about, we can get there when it's the appropriate timing, because right now they're traumatized, and figuring out what their solutions that they want to do today is inappropriate. They need time to process and to, it's going to take time. Unfortunately, the government is going to come in and push them for answers. We need to know what's damaged. We need to know how you're going to fix it. And we want to know what mitigation you want to do. And they're going to be deer in headlights like, and FEMA will push so hard that they'll say something. They'll cave and they'll be like, well, okay, well, we'll just build it back like with a flood wall around it or whatever, they'll just say something just to make FEMA happy, but they are locking themselves into no flexibility later when they do that. It's very uncomfortable for people to have to sit there and tell FEMA repeatedly, the same thing over and over again. I literally role play with my clients to say, now FEMA's they're gonna tell you,
Sure.
yes, they're gonna tell you over and over and over again. And it's like being in court with the other lawyer, right? That's like, you can tell me, or like the cops when they question you. You can tell me, this will keep you out of trouble. Anything you tell me, I can help you out if you'll just tell me what happened. You don't need a lawyer. And that's where me getting kicked out of meetings, FEMA still, I was letting Xavier know that FEMA they started trying to ban me from volunteer meetings back in 2011. And to this day, I'm very proud to say that they still try to ban me from meeting with my paid clients. They will call my clients, they will have ex parte communications with my clients, and they will say, look, it's just easier if we just talk between us. We don't need Laura in the room. She just causes things to be more difficult than they need to be. But we can work with you directly and it'll be much easier. And it is much easier. If you do everything FEMA's way, it's much easier. If you go with FEMA's estimates, because FEMA will tell your clients, we can estimate those damages for you. You don't need to do that. You don't need to bring in your own firm. We'll take care of that for you. Again, you can choose your own firm. You are legally allowed to have your own firm, and the money that you spend on that is all eligible for reimbursement. Your legal fees for somebody helping you put together a compliant procurement contract, that's eligible for reimbursement. Design assistance to figure out what you might want to do in the future, that's all eligible for reimbursement. If they have a strategy for how to have what the gain is, once they know that it's literally a dysfunctional game that's set up upside down, backwards, and inside out, they can get comfortable with practice of holding the line with FEMA and not conveying information. I've taught many, the eligible applicants are going to be municipal governments, all private nonprofits. So private nonprofits are treated identical to a jurisdiction. So universities, private nonprofit hospitals are big landowners, any kind of like park or land conservancy. I know that y'all have a lot of like land conservancy entities on there. Any types of special districts, drainage districts, utility districts, those are eligible applicants. Churches are big landowners in a lot of places. Churches are eligible applicants. I work with everybody outside of, I don't work with the individual homeowners and renters, and I don't work with private businesses. Everybody else is under public assistance. So it doesn't matter what kind of entity they are. If they are a non-critical service private nonprofit, that's like your libraries, your art museums, your community centers. Those are called non-critical service providers. They will have to apply to SBA for a loan and optimally get denied. So it's the only time in your life you really want to be a crappy loan candidate. You want to show all of the worst financials in the world. Submit that to SBA. Most organizations, private nonprofits, get so upset at the insult of an idea that they're being handed a loan pack to fill out in the middle of a damn disaster. They will throw it in the garbage and walk out just disgusted with the experience, imagining that there's going to be some fix to this. They're going to call their senator. They're going to call the governor. They're going to call the president of the United States. Trump came here to Texas after Harvey and told people in Texas that he was going to waive the bureaucratic nightmare. He was going to make that go away. Jesus Christ himself could not waive
the bureaucracy. Oh my God.
It's the code of federal regulations. There's no magic wand. So you have to fill out the packet of SBA paperwork, get a denial, and then the full wallet of the federal government is open to them, just like the city of Miami. They are treated equally under the rules of the law once they get that denial. Critical service nonprofits don't need that, like hospitals, and universities fall under non-critical, nursing homes. So just with a little bit that I know that it's a lot to digest, I've been making some TikToks some short 1-minute TikToks trying to get the basics, like back the drywall and fill out your SBA paperwork,
Laura, a question. I mean, this is excellent. Actually, I knew a little bit about what you're doing, but not the full extent of your expertise. And it's obvious that you know a lot and you have worked with many communities, and it will be imperative for the municipalities with which we have been working on the West Coast, become aware of these underwater obstacles. They're actually above water, from what I can tell. But my impression was that we will introduce you to the people we know on the West Coast, and we have some very smart, really good people. Like for example, I'm thinking Javier, in Bonita Springs, we can introduce Laura to the attorney, Carly. And I think that for us to convey what you're telling us, I can't, because it's, your staff, and what we can say is, look, we have this, incredible expert, and we have been working with her for many years, and she has experience from many places, your short resume, and just make the introduction.
Yeah, you're a trusted advisor to them, and that's what's necessary. I could have a cure for cancer, and no one, if they don't know me, an injured animal.
Yes, but if we introduce you, I think that it's they listen to us for everything. We have been working with them for a long time, especially in Bonita Springs. And I think that right now we are in very good terms also with the city manager, but she will be overwhelmed. I think through Carly, this introduction will be, and Carly is, because she's an attorney, she will know what you're talking about very well. Yeah. I don't know whether they have already done these first mistakes which you're mentioning. They may have done them already.
I listened into a meeting of the Naples city manager, and it sounded like he was already under the gun to get the FEMA data together.
Yes.
He was already quoting figures.
Yes.
And
in Naples,
too late there.
They bully. They're taught, because they're taught. It's not, I just have to say, like, FEMA personnel are good Americans trying to serve their country, but they are trained that if they don't push, that the applicant won't get the stuff done. And again, there's no acknowledgement. You're dealing with trauma, PTSD victims, survivor of a terrible thing. And this pushing and pushing, you collapse it on yourself, and you just give them whatever they want, and you roll over because
and this is because it's a bureaucracy, and they have to do the checks. And then the first people who come in, the people who want the assessment and everything, they just have the check boxes. They don't know what the repercussions, long-term repercussions are for these communities. All these, basically missing on this money in the future. They just don't know with this first tier, and then the next people, as you said, maybe they come in 1 year, and then they will be at a loss. But so I think that Carly is the one person for Bonita Springs, and then in Naples we have the CRA manager. We worked with the CRA on a I mean, it was like a visioning process and a master plan for in Naples. CRA is a community redevelopment agency.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's just basically an area where, there is like a specific redevelopment incentives. And the CRA is basically the city council. The city council. It's the same thing. But we work with the manager, and she's, both of our connections are women. So this is good, because they are, they will listen to you, and they will understand the issues.
She's working very closely with the very new city manager in Naples, who's actually seems to be an extremely competent, supportive individual, very smart.
And very supportive of everything, what we have done. And we have a great record in Naples, because we did their main street many years ago. Andres did a charrette, 30 years ago. And it's like the biggest success in the city. And now we did for them a design district, which is part of the CRA boundary. And I think that a direct conversation with these two women will be very beneficial for these cities, and hopefully it will get you, some involvement, direct involvement, because I mean, we can only recommend you and say, look, just listened. You know, it may be too late. I don't know. It has been already 2 weeks, no?
So hard. It's so heartbreaking because the actions happen so fast. And I have more work than I can handle because I'm building $30 million worth of housing here in Texas that I got
Oh
grants
my God.
to rebuild after Harvey. I'm literally sitting looking at a construction site right now. But I'm always available to do up to an hour of free call with anyone just to lay it out for them, what they're headed into, what the reality is, sort of like the reality of how they need to the best of their ability, start protecting themselves, and they are going to be the ones that have to look out for themselves, and this is the way that you do it. And so I'm happy to inevitably if one entity buys in, usually they call somebody and then everybody's like, okay, yeah. So that's why like Midland, Michigan, I got all the Midland County, Midland City, the university, the Center for the Arts, there's like everybody in the whole community was like, okay, let's use Laura. And they sort of like and I have to be like, I don't do the everyday, I'm not inserted there permanently. So the thing that I can do is help set them up for success. And then if there are a couple of people on your staff, DPZ staff is deep. And I would like to see, this is a great opportunity for you guys to start to build a book of business that is specific to disaster response and recovery. This is what I've been hoping to get implemented through large firms like DPZ, because
large firms, we consider ourselves very small.
You're agile and you're lean, but you have a lot of communities under your belt, and inevitably they will be impacted by disasters. People that people in your firm have worked with, you've been doing work for so long, and Andreas is amongst one of the most prolific. Liz, your work, there's so many people that have touched so many lives and communities. Y'all are trusted advisors. Even if you haven't interacted with a community for 15 years, you still have name recognition, and they have a level of trust with you. And so this would be a wonderful opportunity if you have somebody that could be on Zoom calls with me, because there are some, like, yes, I have the deep knowledge, but there's some like basic stuff that after you hear it a couple of times, that if you have a couple of people that would be interested in learning this, it's the perfect opportunity to rebuild the thing that we all want, right? The perfect opportunity. There's billions of dollars are flowing into Florida right now. We have a microscopic moment in time where we can actually put back all the things that they've dreamed of wanting. We have 90 cents on the dollar reimbursed. There's never going to be, these opportunities are terrible and rare, thankfully. But this magnitude, I was just reading today, they're saying that there is no comparison of any disaster of this magnitude. I mean, I feel like that's pretty insulting to Texas, since we had 287 communities we got 60 inches of rain, so I would say that there are comparable disasters.
Yeah.
But
There was no small event either.
Exactly. There's lots of just so we know, there's lots.
Or Andrew, for that matter. Yeah.
Every week. But I don't know if you all, like, what are your thoughts about maybe somebody younger in the firm, or somebody that, I don't know what I know everybody's schedule is packed, but if there is anybody that you could throw on this to sort of listen in and from the beginning have an understanding of the stuff that I say, because again, you all will be the ones at the table long term, and it's very important for someone on your team to get a feel.
No, I think it has to be one of us. It's either Xavier or somebody at that level, because these people who we have been working with, they trust us, and it's me and Xavier in direct contact. I don't think even a younger person will be I mean, it will be good, but I don't think it's appropriate in this moment to just say, oh, we have somebody to train, somebody young.
Okay.
So I think that it should be either both of us or one of us, or we'll decide depending on the time. Yeah. So that's that important to us. I mean, we have been spending with Xavier years and years, especially in the recent years. I mean, how many years, Xavier? Like the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, since
in these
2017,
communities.
5 years.
Mhm.
At least.
Yeah,
Need it.
starting in
And
Bolivia.
they were having problems with flooding
Mhm.
back then. What our
Yeah.
engagement was delayed because of, what was it, Hurricane Irma or whatever, the
Yeah,
hurricane.
one of the hurricanes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, you lose track after so long. So
Mhm.
as I mentioned, the $30 million that I got in money to rebuild, that money will be rolling into to Florida as well. And I know that, you guys, with Liz's work through the university system, there is a huge role and an important role for the university system to play in supporting these processes. Texas A&M, I was able to get in with a group at Texas A&M. They used their agri-life, like they're literally like the people that go in and teach like cattle husbandry and like birthing and, all of these, poultry science. This is what we have in Texas. Those are the people embedded at a university level in the community. And so getting in with them and teaching them enough so that when they're out at a community meeting and they hear FEMA say something, or they hear, something be said at a meeting, I've given them like a hit list of like, listen for these things. And if you hear it, like that should be a red flag, and like, call me and let me know what you heard, and I can help the jurisdiction navigate it in some way. So if there are any universities or private nonprofits that you all have worked with, again, they're eligible and they are very overwhelmed in this, because jurisdictions at least have that expectation that they're supposed to know how to do this sort of thing. Private nonprofits, hospitals and universities, they have no idea what they're doing. So I don't know if y'all have done any work with any of those types of entities.
In these areas, I mean, in these two
No. We worked with a
cities,
small church, but I don't know.
they haven't started building anything substantial. So even if they're flooded, it will be a playground
Well,
or
their
something.
main church might be. It's just east of, or just west of the US 41. But I sent an email today. I haven't heard back from.
Mhm.
Well, if
Yeah.
you,
We haven't heard for a university or a hospital.
the language that you would use is just to let them know that you know somebody that used to work for FEMA, and it's basically like, having your own lawyer with you when you walk into court. You want to just have somebody that tells you if you're hearing traumatized, they're not going to hear it. FEMA's going to dump everything on them super fast, and they're not going to be able to absorb it. So it's really important that somebody is there to sort of help them after the meeting and like understand what's happening, like prep them going into the meeting so it's not so traumatizing. Like you said, they're just, at this point, they're already getting their asses handed to them. And they're going to start to feel defeated. And once I've talked to so many communities that have just said like, screw it, we're just going to go along, get along, because we just can't fight the machine. And it's like, no, you actually can. They have a lot more power than FEMA will ever let them know. FEMA will tell you over and over again, like, we're the only ones that can make these determinations. And it's like, okay, like also engineers. So sit down, like, all right, so I want as much as I can to be of service to anyone and everyone that you all know of that we can help just protect the babies.
So Laura, the main message is you need to know a few things in order to not be determined ineligible for funding. You could be making mistakes now that will render your projects ineligible for reimbursement.
Correct. The actions that you take within that you're taking right now in your emergency response, y'all are still in recovery. Literally, like they're still doing search and recovery.
Yeah.
So y'all,
the beginning stages of trash removal.
Right.
Yeah.
So what they need to know is it seems insane, like unfathomable, that anything that they do today could possibly hurt them because they're doing normal things. Again, remind them that the federal government who wrote the rule, like the people that write the rules in the process, do not live in disasters. They live in an office, and they write a process and procedures that look really good on paper. And I always break it down. It's as simple as drywall. Isn't it crazy that if you put back free, you didn't even pay for it. You don't even need to be reimbursed for it. It wouldn't even cost you anything to put the drywall back. How could that possibly cost you $1 million new building for
Yeah.
free
Well,
drywall?
I'm really afraid for Naples. Their fire
Yeah.
station next to the city hall flooded substantially. I mean,
And they're doing
bidding
it
that are-
already, probably. They're repairing it.
They're probably ripping out the drywall now, and we'll probably be repairing it.
Yep. So if you could get to, and again, if they've already done some of that, I have, over the course of years, I am very good at language of figuring out words to use to make it not permanent. So we just need to make sure, like, but if FEMA comes out and say, we're fixing it, they're like, writes it, once FEMA writes it down, it is impossible. It
To
is,
change.
it is, and I literally right now in Michigan am fighting over within the first 3 days after the flood, and this is a dam collapse. So they had multiple dam collapses. The Center for the Arts, a nonprofit, had 6 feet of water in their buildings.
Oh my God.
Went down, wood rot. And so now, 2 years later, it has now resurfaced this word rot because it's on a very expensive item that needs to be repaired. It's a $500,000 repair to a cistern. And it's and so FEMA wants to say, oh, well, rot is not eligible. And we're like, who even wrote that? We don't know. Where did that picture? We don't have any, we don't know. We don't know who said it. We don't know why they said it, that we don't know what they were referring to, but they have been talking about this for weeks about rot. And I'm like, I cannot overemphasize enough how the words are going to, you would just think that I have to be making this stuff up. We're talking about millions of dollars being put, and they screwed everyone equally. The nice thing is that FEMA, like even in New York after Harvey, the 9/11 memorial. I mean, what is a more American beloved place than the 9/11 memorial? They made millions of dollars of emergency protective measures ineligible because the way that the documents were scanned into the computer, some of the pages were flipped upside. It was like a 300-page PDF, and like the receipts weren't organized, they weren't labeled, it wasn't clear and easy to understand. So FEMA if you have to put forth any effort, they just slide it aside and say ineligible. Millions of dollars of emergency protective measures. And then this was all eligible stuff, and it was just, they couldn't figure it out, so they said ineligible. So it took me, I worked with let's see who called me in on that one. That was I think their insurance company was the one that called me in on that one to say, like, we don't understand what happened. And we have, $2.5 million of ineligible charges. And so I looked at it. It took me 2 days of working, like 10-hour days of literally doing nothing but organizing the PDF, send it back to eligible. I mean, it's that stupid. Like, that's how broken the system is. So to your, even if they've done some stuff, even if they've already met with FEMA, I need to talk to them directly to know how bad it is. But I've got time. I work 24 hours a day. Like you said, they're overwhelmed. They're not going to have time to talk to anybody, and tell them they don't have time. They don't have the money to not talk to me, because I'm not trying to pimp for business. I don't want their business. I'm not angry.
You have plenty. Yeah.
I told them that I am busy. I'm not trying to get work. I just do this out of an altruistic desire and recognition that the system is totally messed up, and I'm tired of watching it grind up communities and spit them out at the end like, oh, well, those were the rules. We wish it could have been different. I will say there's one other thing that is a big change in policy that just happened 1 month ago that could have a major impact, which is FEMA just changed the policy for small projects, which historically, when I first started doing this, a small project was under $2,500. Then it was $3,500. And then they bumped it up to $80,000. And I think last year it was like at $135,000. Anything under $135,000 was a small project. It was written up quickly on estimate, and you're paid your reimbursement the 90 cents on the dollar, you are reimbursed on your estimate. You don't have to show receipts. You don't have to show that you've done the work. The FEMA obligates the money to the state. The state turns around and writes a check to the applicant. It is very quick because it's always been a small amount of money. So like $3,500, what does it really matter? And then they bumped it up to $135,000 because it's right. You don't have to go through all the pomp and circumstance of all of the certified estimates and the whole thing. You just get your basic estimate. Now, here's the problem. You throw out a wrong estimate at $3,500. Let's say you come in a little low. It doesn't hurt you. You don't get bit in the ass that bad if you underestimated how much it was going to cost to fix something at $3,500. $135,000 is a little bit more of an ouch if you underestimated it. Let's say you thought it'd be 110 and it ends up coming in at 125. Well, you don't get extra money. Like, you got one bite at that apple, and if you underestimated, that's on you. There's no extra going back for more money. So now they've changed it to small projects as anything under $1 million. And they just, the desire, it's altruistic, but there's always unintended consequences. The altruistic desire is that this will make things easier for everyone. Now we can just quickly estimate things and write checks. Well, that sounds wonderful. But if you underestimate on $1 million project, it's a big bite in the rear for which you cannot go back and request more money later. So your need for estimating services is very important. And that's something, again, that has to be procured properly. If they're doing debris removal, so I get into communities for the most boring stuff. And then once I'm in, I can help them understand the more fun stuff, like, ideas of how you build back. The stuff that you guys are experts at, the first thing that they're going to be doing is debris removal. Those contracts are okay right now, operating under an emergency contract of just with whoever they could find. But within about a month, FEMA will expect, they won't make an announcement or anything, but they will just expect magically that jurisdictions know that they should now go out for actual procurement for their debris removal, because debris removal will be going on for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
And debris removal is very expensive. And that is, I don't know how wealthy the communities are that you guys work with. I imagine if they're bringing DPZ on, then they're doing all right financially. But
is not hurting. However, their inability or their allocation of funding for these services that they're not getting reimbursed on will mean that they're not going to do the economic development projects that we're helping them.
Yeah.
So they're already talking about not building a garage. That was a critical element, an infrastructure to our design district project. So wherever we can help them not lose funding, I think is critical.
They're eligible for up to many elements. So here's the beautiful thing about if again, the policy actually is super flexible. The actual rules of disaster recovery, FEMA's policy itself is actually allows for a massive amount of innovation and a real huge flexibility of funding. So if you have a really excellent team of estimators, your MEPs, your architects of really like an A+ team, really visioning the most expensive versions of everything that you are legally allowed to put back, you can put in place. FEMA allows, without even running a benefit cost analysis, which is a pain in the rear and takes money and specialty software to do, but without even running a benefit cost analysis, all of your MEP related items are eligible for 100% the value of putting it back the way it was. You can get that much money more to mitigate the risk. So if you have $1 million worth of MEP damages, you can write it up for a $2 million project just for your MEP to do various types of mitigation. So the thing that is the most lovely about if you play the game right, the biggest win is to get top-notch estimators. You maximize every single dollar that you are legally allowed to have. I always work backwards in my estimate. I look at what the applicant is legally, the maximum that they are legally allowed to get in hazard mitigation. I start with that number and then I figure out the design solution to fit in the hole. We don't have to do the thing. we have to get an agreement with FEMA for the amount of money. Once we have an agreement for the money, here's the messed up part. You shake hands with FEMA, you agree on a set grant amount through the 428 program, you lock in your numbers, FEMA signs off, you sign off, everybody walks away. You now have your grant agreement. By the way, FEMA is a grant program. You have your grant agreement. And then you can actually do a whole lot of anything that you want. You don't have to do the project that you explained to FEMA. You can do a totally alternate project. You can go and say, we decided not to do that at all. We're going to go over here and build something totally different. Totally flexible money. And if you have really estimated high on everything and you didn't spend all of your money, the money that you didn't need for hard construction can go into training. It can go into like all kinds of flexible
planning
of it. Literally, like the 428 program is a magical program. You know, ordinarily you'd get penalized if you want to do an alternate program. You lose your hazard mitigation money. You know, so knowing the game, it's literally game strategy. So if you know straight out of the gate what the game strategy is, that it doesn't matter what you really want to do. The key right now is to get all the money that you can locked in. Then you have plenty of time to decide what the hell you want to do. But FEMA's got you on a tight timeline. Let's figure out the maximum amount of money that you can get it locked in. And then you got all the time and resources in the world to make the brighter decisions about what you really want to do. You can take years to figure that out if you need to.
Wow, I mean, this will be amazing for these two communities. You know, these are communities which are, you know, well-to-do. You know, as Javier said, you know, our project actually happens in the area which needed help, and it's probably as flooded as everything else.
Yeah,
was flooded.
And
like these were the small businesses. Yeah, these were the small businesses, the mom and pop, you know, with the affordable housing. So we just don't know all the facts right now. But I think such conversation with both the CRA manager in Naples and the lawyer, the attorney.
Can it be the same
attorney.
conversation, or would you rather have two separate conversations?
Oh no, I can meet with as many people. I mean, and again, I'm available because they're going to be so stressed. It's highly improbable that it's typical that people are not available during the day because they're busy with like all of the, you know, literal emergency, the literal disaster. So it becomes a little easier to get people on a call in the evening when like things die down just a little bit so that they can catch their realize how exhausted they are. So those are usually better times to catch people, or in the evening, and you can load up. I'd like to do it on Zoom so that they can see me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lot. And
they can record, or you can record it for them, and they will have, because you're rapid fire with your information, and there's no way Galina and I are going to retain all of this.
Well, I recorded this session exactly for that reason, and I will send you a link to the recording. Specific pieces that you want to recall. And again, I'll send you a follow-up email that has a link to my TikToks. And I know that sounds kind of...
Oh, that's great.
That'll be great.
I'm getting really good traction on my TikTok. Just in one day, I got 700 views on the one about the drywall.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
I'm afraid that they've already made that mistake with their fire station, but we'll see.
We can always look. I'm very good at ripping out drywall. So we go in and fix things.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned enough in my 12 years of doing this. I hate that I wish that my job didn't exist. I wish I weren't needed. My intention is to get a DC appointment and overhaul the federal government, because this system is untenable. There's no
it's crazy bureaucracy which holds up so much money. You know, it's basically these.
It's wrapped up in so many good intentions. You wish it could all just fall into place.
No, and you know, there are so many things which I'm not clear about, like what is eligible under the FEMA stuff. You know, because we pay insurances. You know, this is for the individual homes and everything. But I guess all buildings, whether they are state or municipal buildings, they're also insured. So is it infrastructure, or what is it?
So FEMA is the funding of last resort. So you are eligible, but once they write up your project, we don't worry about insurance at this point because nobody really knows how much insurance, what they'll be fighting with their insurance companies for months.
If these insurance companies exist.
Oh, exactly. So it doesn't even, you're eligible for FEMA. If you're a municipal government, a special district, or a critical service nonprofit, you are eligible for FEMA assistance. So they're going to come in and they're going to write up your damages, and you're going to get your damage estimate. You're going to put in a hazard mitigation proposal if you want one. This project will go through the FEMA queues. And one of the queues that it goes to is insurance review. So this will be many, many months from now, once they get these projects written. It will go through a review where they have their insurance policy, and the FEMA personnel, if there have been any settlements already made, FEMA will accept those. And if there have been no settlements, then FEMA will estimate what the settlement should be. Based on what the policy reads as, and then they deduct that off of what the eligible funding is. So if you've got a $10 million, this happened in Michigan, they had no building coverage, but they had a huge fine art policy set through Lloyd's of London. So their insurance carrier, Lloyd's of London, is much smarter than the federal government. They know to pay fast because it saves them money. They don't ask a lot of questions. They just want a number. We don't care. Give us a number and we're going to write you a check and move on. So they had a $4 million art policy, but they had $8 million worth of damage across all of their sites with their collections. And we applied it all to one site just to make it easy. So what they did is FEMA wrote up the full $8 million worth of art damage, plus the damage to the building, the MEP, all of the added all together, and then they assign, it's just a line item of insurance reduction. It's just a bottom line item. And then so you're eligible for reimbursement, the amount left in that column. For homeowners, if you get any questions from individual homeowners, the only thing that I can tell them is they're going to be screwed. There's no easy way to say it. The most that they can get out of the system is like $20,000. That's the maximum of government assistance. So they're screwed. In order to get even a little bit of the money, even the $20,000, they have to apply to SBA and be denied, or whatever version. Once they have to apply to SBA, though, it's that same catch-22. You tell a disaster victim that has just lost everything that they've got to go fill out a loan application, and they will cuss you to 6 ways to Sunday and throw that packet in the garbage and walk out angry as a hornet. They will think that there is some version that they don't have to fill out that damn paperwork, but by the time they realize that there is no other version, the window for filling out that SBA application will have a deadline, and that window will close. And once that window closes, same for FEMA, public assistance. Once that deadline closes, if you realize that you needed that, it's too late. So
what does SBA stand for?
Small Business Administration. And why private homeowners and renters have to fill out an SBA application is nonsensical to me.
No, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So if you know any just regular people, and by the way, I tell the municipal governments, they don't know how to advise people. People are coming in asking how they do this stuff and cussing about the fact that somebody gave them a loan packet and they don't want a damn loan. And it's like, yeah, exactly. Make yourself look like the worst loan candidate in the world, but you got to fill out the paperwork. It's going to take SBA weeks, if not months, to process that paperwork. You'll be glad you did. And the best thing you could ever get is a denial. And then, like, even with the Midland Center for the Arts, they were approved for a huge loan. They were in the middle of COVID. They hadn't even reopened in Michigan. They were like, we've had no income for years. We have had our doors shuttered. All of our endowment has been used up. They had no money, and SBA approved them for a ridiculous amount of money. We spent a year fighting SBA to prove that they were a terrible loan candidate. But I'm very good at being argumentative, and it took a year, but we got that denial letter. We had to, it's like when you hang up and keep calling customer service until you get the answer you want. We had to keep at it, and we had to get their senator involved, their congressperson involved. I mean, it was a lot, but we got it, and they got a full denial, and now, that was, yay, we got a denial. So that's what you got to tell people is like, you got to do this bureaucratic bullshit. The reality is you just got to do it, and you can hate it, but bitch about it to your bartender.
So you get a denial letter from the SBA, and then that means what? The government pays the 20,000?
The FEMA. So you will be eligible again. They'll look at what kind of, if you have private insurance, and if then you're eligible for FEMA recovery funds. And I don't do the individual assistance side of things. I got friends that do, but I think at least a couple of years ago it was 20,000. Maybe it's up to 22 or 25. I don't know.
Okay.
Not much. And
well, I'm going to tell this CRA administrator, because she had 3 inches of water in her house, and it's a total loss.
Tell her to get in as fast as because SBA can process your paperwork faster now because people haven't started like dumping in the packets. So get in early, get your packet in so that you can get processed. I mean, look how many disasters there are that SBA is having to process. It's a lot.
Oh my God, it's staggering.
Get it in super quick, and they need to be on the TV saying that to everybody. Fill out that SBA paperwork, cuss about it, write your congressperson that it should change, but today you got to fill out the packet. What would be the other thing? There was something when you were talking about the special district that came to my mind. I can't think of it. Anyway, just, the lawyers are good ones. Lawyers always like me. They understand, they understand policy. They get that it doesn't matter if you think it's stupid, it's still the rule,
I suspect Bonita Springs will know this process because they had the flooding back in 2017. So this is not going to be their first rodeo, is my guess, but I'll find out.
Who knows?
So also let them know, this is the other thing that I run into with a community that has flooded before. This happened a lot in Texas. Oh, we already know how to do that. We had a flood in 2017. We know what to do. No, you don't. No, you don't. Those policies. Are you a federal policy expert? Because if you are, that's fantastic. You do know what to do. But if you are relying on what you went through before to think that what you went through before was probably not a good like you didn't know back then what you didn't know.
And we can see your policy expert behind you.
Yeah, that's my child.
Oh, I have one right here.
Oh, I remember what it was I was going to say. About the long term. So like the $30 billion, that's going to be HUD Community Development Block Grant disaster recovery money. We have the potential to help Florida to advise to put, if y'all have access, we have the ability to push the state on how to implement emergency response housing differently. And this is something that Andreas and I have talked about, but I think he quits listening every time I start talking about policy. And then he just wants to bitch about FEMA and Katrina. But if y'all have any ends at the state level, or if there are jurisdictions that have good representatives at the state level, there is a way in which disaster response housing can be taken away from FEMA and put through at the state level and passed through to like the local jurisdictions running their own emergency housing response. That precedent was first set after Harvey. So it's only been 5 years since that precedent was set. And then after we did it, then California took on even more of the housing. And again, that's the first time ever that FEMA has handed over the disaster response housing. So if Florida desired, they could be in charge of the emergency response rollout of like the Katrina cottages that they shelved. All of the work that was done after Katrina is not for naught. Those cottages still exist on the FEMA campus. They bought a bunch of them and took them up to Maryland, and they're sitting on the campus in Maryland. But because there's no retention of institutional knowledge, because the turnover of staff is so pervasive, nobody knows that They don't know about the
Wow.
$1 billion. They don't know all of the things that they don't know. And so, but there is a way, that's like a higher level conversation, but that housing is possible to do. Like, I've worked with Steve Muzan on the concept of like pop-up, emergency pop-up tent villages, essentially, of how you can pop it up with, you want your emergency housing structures, whether it's tents or whatever it is, to be a little miniature town center, right? You want to organize your tents where you're distributing food, where you're distributing clothes, etc. You set it up literally like a little town center so that you have a place for people to come in the evenings, that everyone knows where to come to listen to some music in the evening. There's plenty of places for kids to play. And this is in the midst of the rubble, because this is, people don't want to get far from their homes. They stay where they can see their stuff. The destruction of their lives, but it's psychologically damaging for them to stay.
There's so many trailer parks that were just erased.
Exactly. Well, your whole state's about to become a trailer park. Yeah. So we have an opportunity to put in trailer parks or tent villages or little camper villages to become little pocket neighborhoods. And again, it's something that you guys are perfectly slated to be advising on, is all of this rapid response. Now, this isn't stuff 5 years from now. This is and I refer to it as like where they're handing out the bottled water and tarps. That becomes the de facto location. And if it's a parking lot that's not well sited, that will be where all of the Red Cross will set up. It's where FEMA sets up. All of a sudden, when you get everything, all the services are at this location that's haphazardly selected just because there happened to be an empty building there or an empty parking lot. But if you can direct where these goods and services start being handed out, that place can be the place of recovery, of emotional recovery. And bringing in food and music and fellowship is almost never a part of the U.S. recovery system. And if we can create, like with the communities that if we can go ahead and put together with tactical urbanism, just put together a basic little place for people. If you've got food to donate, you can always go and donate it there. And if you've got goods to donate, you can always go and donate it there. So it's a place that everyone knows at 5 o'clock every evening, they can always come for a hot meal. They can always come for fellowship and to check out. They know that their kids can play with other kids, because kids are living through this as well. Their parents are traumatized. Kids are rather resilient, but they need somehow to stay busy in the midst of all of it. And so, again, working with groups like, who is it out of Dallas? What's the tactical urbanism placemaking group out of Dallas that does they have containers that you can rent, and it's basically like you just pop everything. It's no hammers or screws or anything. Do y'all know who I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea. Where, in which city?
It's Dallas, Fort Worth area. Dallas. He's a new urbanist. Just can't. It's like place something. I'll send it to you in an email. I'll think of it in a second. But they have cargo containers that you can rent, and then it's placemaking. It doesn't have anything to do with disasters. But I think it's a fantastic idea for this exact moment, especially when you've got tables and chairs that just have the pieces that slide together, that you don't even need hammers and nails. And so, like, doing little mini, just like in Seaside, imagine a little pop-up of the little tiny shacks, with the windows open, and you also put back in place the business owners that have lost their businesses.
Oh my goodness.
Go bankrupt very soon. They're not going to get insurance payments for a very long time. They're not earning an income. There will be so many that go out of business quickly. But if they had a storefront, we can go ahead and get them micro units, pop them up. If they were a restaurant, let's get them back open. Let's have them be the providers of the food rather than just relying on donated resource from Red Cross. We can start to funnel donated money for food, not just a Red Cross or a church, but funnel it to restaurant owners who have lost
businesses.
They were the anchors of their neighborhood anyway, And so any businesses that have little pop-ups, we can do tactical urbanism now And if we do it in a way that's in the right place of where the town center is supposed to be, where the park was supposed to be, or like the perfect place that never really quite took off, we can do that now. And what it does is it follows a model that was accidentally developed in Christchurch after they had a huge earthquake. They did not through strategy, but they accidentally set up in a park that was not a used park, well-used park, was not a beloved park, but it happened to be in the middle of a neighborhood. So that's where they set up to hold meetings to tell people where to get emergency services. You know, it's where like Red Cross would be and all this stuff. So it happened that over time, that just was always forever the place where everybody came for information. So as they got into 6 months after the disaster and they had to talk about long-term recovery, the community was already used to coming there. All the people participated in the concepts of rebuilding and what we wanted to do. And that is now the most beloved park in the city because so many people have an emotional connection to it because of the disaster. And so there's a huge role for tactical urbanism in immediate response efforts that we could mobilize with, you know, the folks on your team that are used to doing that, like, you know, so it's perfect for Mike Blyden and a bunch of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have some also knowledge of how to do that, but I think that, I mean, these are great ideas, and I think that we have to make this connection
I'll be on the
immediately.
phone right now to both of them.
Yes. Okay. Let's do that, and then see how, I mean, how we can help with some of these ideas.
Laura, send me your TikTok collection so that I can go with that.
If y'all know any outside of the public assistance stuff, if there's anybody that you can think of that would be interested in the tactical urbanism stuff, this is where young people that want to do something right now.
That's great.
Galina, this might be more appropriate for the Fort Myers area that has really been destroyed.
Wiped out, huh?
Wiped out, yeah.
Well, it's on the beach. The thing is, it's Fort Myers. It's Fort Myers Beach, which I don't know that community at all. Whether it's only houses, it's like a barrier. Yeah, it's a barrier island, so it most likely it has been just big houses along.
I've seen some of the aerial footage, and the islands have been reshaped. Let me put it.
That's where they lost 9 feet of beach, right?
What?
9 vertical feet of beach.
Oh yeah, and huge gouges. It's like Sanibel Island, all these inlets now that never existed before. It's really,
it's like fjords. Yeah,
exactly.
Fjords.
It's a different. Yeah, so if y'all have anybody on your team that's like, you know, talking about like they're gonna start volunteering or they're looking for places that they can like plug in and like help, I'm happy to give them a tutorial on how to use their knowledge of pop-up and tactical to use their mad awesome skills in a response related emergency response status, you know. Skills that can be used right now. And most people think, well, y'all's expertise doesn't come in until much later, but the truth is we can start using it now if we're strategic with it. Okay, well, I hope some of this
that's amazing, Laura. Thank you so much for spending the time, and we'll get in touch with our clients to see how they can be, you know, assisted. I mean, if they can hire you or whatever, in whatever capacity, it will be awesome.
Well, I'll give them a free hour, you know, an hour.
Just like an introduction to see where they are, what they have done, whether they have put the new drywall. I doubt it.
That's my fear, that they've moved forward with some of this, but
but it's but Xavier, there's so many buildings in these places. It's like hundreds and hundreds of buildings, so it's probably not everywhere. Here and there probably they have started little things, but but it's also about infrastructure. You know, it's about roadways. It's about
another thing is
that's the estimates that I think were being gathered very quickly for FEMA.
Well, and that's what I'm so like with flood events, there's so much underground infrastructure that you don't even know has been impacted. FEMA will close. They will close. They have 60 days from the date of your disaster for you to identify all of your damages.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
What? That's insane. Who could do that like that fast? So you end up with, like we ended up in Texas, we have a lot of clay pipes. I'm sure that y'all don't have that down there, but we had sinkholes open up like a year after the event because, once we went through a drought, a year after. So you have all of this impact of hyper-saturated soil and the weight of that on these clay pipes, cracked and broke a lot of them, but you don't really notice it until you have a drought, and then that soil pulls away and the entire things. I mean, we had a car fall into an open hole.
That's
And-
going to happen in Central Florida because that happens anyway.
That's not, and there are jurisdictions are not there. Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't say that you had damages. And FEMA also does not allow you to, they do not pay for you looking for damages, which is, if you find damages, it's eligible. But if you didn't find damages, you looking for them was not an eligible cost. So again, it's playing the game so that you are protected through this weird ass system. Y'all use my cell phone number to text me for quicker response because I get buried under emails and I can't keep up with them. So just
Okay.
Is it in your letterhead?
Yeah, the 202.
Okay, let me see.
Okay.
And I'm going to send a follow-up with this link to the video and the
Great.
and the link to the
Wonderful.
TikToks and the YouTube videos and my cell phone number will be on there.
Okay. Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
All
Thank
right.
you very much, Laura.
I
Good
can-
luck with what you're doing right now, and hopefully
Yeah.
we'll. Okay. Bye.
you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.